we are at the beginning of a great, beautiful golden age of business. And I think we're also at a golden age of common sense.
A golden age of common sense. Common sense isn't, but we should all remember normal. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba. And today is the 90th anniversary of the birth of Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley. If he were alive today, he would be celebrating his birthday, and he'd be turning 90 years old, which a great many people do. But not Elvis Presley, unfortunately. So much amazing and crazy news going on. I'm going to get back to President Trump's press conference yesterday at Mar-a-Lago and all of that good stuff. President Trump tonight will be meeting with, in D.C., Washington, D.C., coming to Washington, D.C., to meet with a group of Republican senators. He's going to meet with Republican senators. A lot to talk about, most certainly. No doubt about that. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. And the Democrats are just not on our side. This morning, I was taking notes. I was at home with my best girl, watching the sun come up. Watching the sun come up this morning. It was pretty. And while I was watching the sun come up out the window, I was watching the TV. It's a big screen TV. And it was all the fires in California. And there was the red sun and a red skied morning. You know, sailor take warning. That's right, we're not sailors, so it doesn't matter. And the fire on the TV screen matched the color of the sun rising outside. And I thought, well, California, you know what they're doing there? They do a lot of ridiculous stuff in California. A lot of things that, you know, they don't groom the forests and things like that. All kinds of things. Remarkable. But and there was a story last year. About how the environmentalists, even some like sane environmentalists, were upset that the Forest Service in California said they didn't have the ability to have controlled burns, which reduce incidents like the ones we're watching now in the Los Angeles area, fires burning entire neighborhoods and billions of dollars in homes and things. But they because liberalism, they don't groom the forests, they groom the children. They don't have controlled burns. They don't allow logging companies to clear cut and therefore maintain control over forests. They do all the wrong things in the name of environmentalism. And while I was watching that, I was taking notes and looking up other stuff about Guantanamo Bay freeing 11 of the 26 terrorists at Guantanamo Bay. Just let them go. About commuting the sentences of 37 murderers on death row in federal custody. About the Democrats, 159 of them voting against the Lake and Riley Act and in favor of voting for Jose Ibarra. Only 48 Democrats voted in the House of Representatives in favor of the Lake and Riley Act, and 159 Democrats voted against it. It's truly amazing. The L.A. fires, and I was, like the chaos everywhere. The illegal alien gang member that showed up in court yesterday who set a sleeping woman on fire and murdered her on a New York City subway train. The illegal aliens everywhere causing all kinds of havoc and mayhem that the Democrats are 100% or nearly 100% responsible for, with the open borders policy and ringing the dinner bell and all of that madness. The illegal alien mayhem taking over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado, causing chaos and anarchy in the city of Chicago, making New York too dangerous for people to go to. The L.A. fires, honestly, everything is on the Democrats. They're unbelievable. This is the party of rioting in Kenosha, Wisconsin. They brought rioting to Kenosha, Wisconsin over George Floyd. And then they tried to lynch the teenager that defended himself against the violent mob of criminals and, convicts that attacked the teenager. They're on the side of the criminals attacking the teenager. The Democrat Party is insane, completely insane. Really is. And they're killing whales. That's right. They kill whales in the Atlantic Ocean, too. Aren't they amazing? Well, I mentioned the phone lines being problematic today, and we did have one phone call come through, made it through, and talked to Jasmine. Jasmine is, she's reading and, snacking today. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Rob calling from Montgomery County, Maryland. Oh, Rob, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Chris, thank you very much. Yeah, the People's Republic. I want to, I just have a couple things real quick. One of them is, my read on all this that Biden is doing right now, his performance that's happening with all these bills being signed and executive orders. Obama's behind all this. Joe Biden couldn't run a lemonade stand from the day that he took office to present.
Yeah.
The other thing is these people, they still don't get it, that the American people have had it with all the lies and all the finagling. And they're doing all this because they can't stand the simple thought that they're losing power very shortly. Because they don't care about the American people. They care about one thing and one thing. It's like you said many times. It's party, party, party first, and the rest of it comes after. Yeah. And the last thing is there's no faith. This country has lost faith.
Yep.
And that's problematic in itself. But, hey, thank you so much for taking the call. And I'll tell you what, you have kept me sane for years, okay? And I've been in Montgomery County my whole life. And I think you might remember back to way, way, way back, I dated Bill Headline's daughter. I think you might remember me from that phone call way, way, way back. You knew him from CBS.
Yeah, CNN, yes. Yeah. And I remember his daughter, and let me say, a very beautiful woman.
Yeah, Allison was wonderful. I probably should have said her name. She married a lovely guy. But anyway, no, you and your first lady, I'm glad that you get to keep us informed, because the other side, they still, of course, are planning on how to not inform and disinform and everything else. I don't think that's going to change. I really don't. But anyway, God bless you, and I'll say Happy New Year kind of late. I think it's a little late now, but thank you for what you do. We all need you to keep us sane and bring normal back. We need normal.
Remember normal, man. I got to tell you, and you're right about the faith issue. You're absolutely right. And I mentioned it yesterday. I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but there's a podcast. The Rosary in a Year is the name of the podcast. And it is a priest, and he does a podcast, and he just beat the Joe Rogan show on his podcast, which is the world's most popular podcast, like 14 million followers or something. And this quite remarkable story is making news all over the world. And you're absolutely right. It is about a lack of faith. A lot of this is about a lack of religious faith. And Rosary over Rogan, the Independent, writing, Trump Allies podcast knocked off #1 spot by Religion Show. Isn't that amazing? And since you mentioned it, I wanted to make mention of this once again. Religious podcast, prayer podcast has beaten Joe Rogan's podcast for the #1 slot, Apple's U.S. charts, and it's the Rosary in a Year with Father Mark Mary Ames, and #1 top spot. And that's because people are starved, because the world doesn't make any sense anymore, right? And everything, the chaos, the anarchy, the violence, the terrorism, the lunacy, and the political leadership of the Democrat Party in the United States of America. And you're right about Obama, too. Obama's the puppet master behind the Biden administration. And you're right, because somebody has to run it. And they were running, and I talked about it during the last 4 years, where people spotted the cars belonging to the senior White House officials in the Biden White House were actually at Barack Obama's house day after day off of Embassy Row by the main mosque in Washington, D.C., where Barack Obama moved to his $8 million mansion off of Embassy Row. And the driveway there full of cars from the White House that should have been working at the Biden White House were actually at Obama's house, right? And that's a clue, right? Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah, man.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris, one last thing.
Sure.
You're going to love this. I don't believe in aliens, from outer space.
Uh-huh.
But could you imagine if there was, intelligent life that all of a sudden shows up, whenever? Do you think they'd really want to have anything to do with this planet at this point?
I got to tell you, it'd be like a sitcom for them. I think they just want to watch. They'd want to turn it into a streaming podcast, and they'd sit there and eat whatever their version of popcorn is, and laugh and laugh and laugh, and think how great it is to be them.
Chris, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Rob. That's it is. It's true. If you're from another galaxy, you'd probably be thinking that your galaxy is pretty cool if you're watching what's going on here, because these people. All right, let me get to the mailbag. I'm gonna try to get to everything here. Robert Fisher says, "Welcome back, Chris. I had 2 weeks off for the first time in 2 years, I think. Missed your shows. I hope the move went well. My best girl and we moved to a different apartment. We stayed in the same zip code in Washington, D.C., but it came with a free box of ammo, so that's good. That's what they do in D.C. now. Hope the move went well. Thank you. And we really, moving is supposed to be stressful and stuff, and it can be. But my best girl and we did a really great job. It was pretty mellow, I got to say. We're still unpacking, and that's going to go on for some time, but that's okay. Can you let us know the 3 things you look forward to? You look forward to the most in a MAGA, Maha, Doge, America First administration. USA, 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 which is great. So we got MAGA, Maha, Make America Healthy Again. In fact, there's a story on that today. What is it? Children getting kidney stones at record numbers in the United States of America, never seen before. This is kind of an amazing story. More kids are getting kidney stones, and doctors don't know why. Experts worry more children getting kidney stones due to diet. See, that's the Maha, Make America Healthy Again, the Robert F. Kennedy thing, right? And this is an affliction that normally takes root in middle-aged men and older men. And now children are getting kidney stones all over the place. What am I looking forward to? I'm looking forward to, I hope, the return of normal. Remember normal. And I'm hoping that there will be a return, at least to some degree, of normal. Now, President Trump's very entertaining, and he's very unorthodox, but the American people need to wake up, and I think American people are waking up. I'm looking forward to accountability and fairness returning. The FBI, the Justice Department, I'd like to see accountability for people like John Brennan, the Communist Party voting CIA director under Barack Obama, who was mentored by a communist when he was a teenager, Frank Marshall Davis, the communist. I'm looking forward to fairness and accountability being brought back. I'm looking forward to more normal. And I'm looking forward to, Robert, the Trump administration having an effect much like the Reagan administration had on millions of Americans, including me. I'm looking for a generation to be educated, to have eyes opened because of the Trump era, and become more aware of what is real and what is not real, what is true and what is not true, what the role of government is and what the role of government is not. I'm looking forward to a generational sea change in American politics that has an effect for decades to come, as the Reagan administration did. And that's, see, now look what I've done. So I've got one question into the mailbag from Robert Fisher. I'm looking forward to, at least to a degree, a return to normalcy, to normal. Remember normal. And get your Remember Normal gear at the Chris Plant store on Al Gore's Amazing Internet. Lots of other great stuff, too. I'm looking forward to accountability and fairness being reinstituted. The FBI, the Justice Department, the intelligence community, and for people to be held accountable for running information operations against the American people and corrupting our elections here in the United States. Accountability. Looking forward to that. And a generational sea change politically, socially, and culturally. Eyes being opened, as was the case in the Reagan years. And I have more mailbag coming up. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. Madness, I say. This morning I texted a friend in Malibu, where there are fires, and there are fires in the Los Angeles metropolitan area, and Mayor Karen Bass is in Ghana for the inauguration of the president of Ghana, because that's where you want to be, and probably got a first-class upgrade on the airfare, no problem. But a friend in Malibu just got back to me, texted me back, and she lives in a beautiful place overlooking the Pacific Ocean and surrounded by beautiful property and their horses and great stuff. And she just texted back to me. She said, well, we're okay. The house is okay, albeit looks like a war zone. The winds are insane and smoke is everywhere. Trying to find somewhere to go today with the dogs. No power, no electricity. Occasional texts being received via satellite, but no phone service or internet, no cell phone service. So they have a landline. They normally would have electricity. They normally would have internet. They normally would have cell phone service. They have none of that. No electricity, no landline phone, no internet connectivity, no cell phone service. And there's a fire not far from us. We can see, but we're not sure what it is that's burning yet. It sounds like a form of hell. And what it is California. What it is California. And California needs to be saved by someone. Gavin Newsom is obviously not the guy. And again, the Forest Service there, not long ago, it was last year, putting out a statement saying that they are not going to do controlled burns. They're not going to do grooming of forests, right? And they don't have the manpower, and they've got to set people because they defund everything that you need to fund, and they fund everything that you need to defund because they're the left, and they're completely insane. And again, the Center for Economic and Policy Research, and I am getting back to the mailbag, by the way, but on October 28th of 2024, said that last week the U.S. Forest Service announced it would stop prescribed burning in California for the foreseeable future, stating the decision was made as a precautionary measure to ensure the availability of staff and equipment in case of a potential wildfire. Oh, okay. Well, how you doing now? So the Forest Service says we're going to stop the controlled burns and the grooming, and that's working out well. All right, let's get back to the mailbag, and then I still have more President Trump I haven't gotten to. It's amazing how quickly 3 hours flies by when you're having such fun with the world. It is a mad world. No doubt about that. But I am hopeful, eternally hopeful. It's an ongoing fight, good against evil. The Democrat Party is playing the role of evil in the world today, and they're pretty good at it. All right, let's go back to the mailbag. Let's go back to, what is it? Sirokiva says, Chris, how did you get to work on Monday? We had a little snow. We had some snow. How did you get to work on Monday? Did you have to walk in with all the snow? Did the car make it? I've slept at work the last 2 nights, so I didn't have to drive in the snow, said Sirokiva. And let's see, how did I get to work on Monday? It's the thing. When I turned 16, I was living in Chicago. And I'd taken driver's education at the high school, at the New Trier West High School, right? And And it was the first day that I could go in and take the driving test. My birthday is December 12th, right? And that's the winter time in Chicago, not in Buenos Aires, but in Chicago it is. And so but I wanted to get my driver's license right away. And so I went down to the, driver's license testing place on my birthday, and it was a nasty winter day, and there was snow everywhere and ice, and, things were closed down, and I went down there, and they're in Chicago, it's pretty normal. You get in your car and you drive, because what else are you going to do? And nobody had four-wheel drive things. I had my mother's car because I was just turning 16 years old that day. What, are you going to have my own car? No. So I got my mother's car, my beloved sainted single mother raising 6 boys, and I took her Cutlass. It was yellow. It was not the best color, but I took the Cutlass down and got into the car, went to do the driving test, right? Because you get out on the road, and you take a written test, and, hey, what's a stop sign and stuff like that. People around here don't know. You know what people around here don't know? What does a flashing red light mean? Right? And Michael's rolling his eyes. People around here don't know what and we got a lot of flashing red lights because we got these crosswalks, and it just goes flashing red light, and a flashing red light is been treated as a stop sign. You stop, and then you go. But don't run over the pedestrians if there's a crosswalk, right? But in any case, I digress. People there know how to drive because it's Chicago, and you got normal people, more normal anyway. And didn't have all the millions of illegal alien gang members then so much. We just had our local American gang members, and they were much better. And so I got in my car at the age of 16 and went out driving, and the driving guy doing the test is like, okay, we're going to come up to this intersection and do donuts. Let's do donuts. Punch it. Bang the steering wheel to the left. Do donuts. I'm making this part up, but you just get in the car and you drive, right? So, and then it's December 13th, and I'm like, hey, Mom, I've got a driver's license. And so, can I have your car? Take your car, go out and do donuts? And she's like, yeah, sure. So I'm out doing donuts in parking lots and things. And so what I learned how to drive in snow. I learned how to drive in Chicago. So we had, in D.C., we only had, I don't know what we had, 5 inches of snow the other day, give or take. I was calling it 4 inches. I always downplay this stuff. It might have been 6 inches of snow. And I don't have a four-wheel drive vehicle. I've got a little vehicle. It's got front-wheel drive, a 4-cylinder thing. It's not all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. And it's a little car, 4-cylinder. And I got my car and I drove to work. Now, I live like 2 miles from the radio station, and there wasn't a lot of plowing going on, but there had been a little plowing on one main road. I only drive, I guess it's 4 streets I take driving here, but for the most part, it's one main road in Washington, D.C., and for the most part, it's Wisconsin Avenue. And I got in my car and I drove here, and it's a piece of cake. And then I came to work, and then when I left, I drove home and I had lunch, and then I got in my car and I drove to my second job because, that's what you do. I don't find it hard. I like driving in the snow. I've always kind of liked driving in the snow. I've never found it to be hard, particularly. It's true that sometimes cars get stuck in the snow and your wheels spin and stuff like that. And my car has a mode on the. I'm going like this with my finger, like I'm pushing a button on the console. It's got a mode, and with traction control. And it's funny, you turn traction control off, and then it drives better in the snow. And it was a fine piece of cake. I don't mind it at all. Your car gets covered with stuff in the wheel wells and things, but, that's about it. I did the late, great Mike McKay, who used to be our board operator here and run all the music and the sound and stuff. We got a painting, a portrait of him over here in the studio. And Mike McKay, there was a big snowstorm years ago. And Mike called me in the morning, and he says, let me come pick you up. He got a 4-wheel drive Ford Explorer or something. And he came to my house a couple miles away. And he insisted. I'm like, no, just drive myself. He said, I got a 4-wheel drive. I want to come get you. And so he came to get me at my building. And and we did donuts all the way up Wisconsin Avenue. We did in the middle of the block at every intersection, and we were laughing and pounding the doors and the dashboards, and we did donuts everywhere, and just laughing and howling, and because that was a big snowstorm, and there was a lot of snow, and I would have just driven in anyway. Then I had my Lincoln Townhouse then, and the Lincoln Townhouse rear-wheel drive, 4,000 pounds. But it drives in the snow, and you can fishtail all over the place and have fun. No traction control in that thing. Got a 5-Tony trunk. If you put 5 Tonys in your trunk, you get better traction. But yeah, he came and we did donuts all the way up. But it was a piece of cake. So how did you get to work on Monday? I drove. But I could walk if I set out early enough. That's a fun question. That's fun. Dan says, isn't it odd that the Dems aren't questioning the legitimacy of the election results this time, and there were no objections to the certification of the election? What gives? That's a fun question. And it's true. The Democrats, they've objected during the certification process in every presidential election that the Republicans have won, going back to H.W. Bush. I think they did not object. Is that right? I think that's right. I'm doing this from memory, but I think that's right. They've objected during the January 6th certification process. Democrats have objected to every Republican victory during the certification process, every time going back to H.W. Bush. And this time they didn't. Why? Well, because of January 6th. And they don't want to seem like insurrectionists. Although, Hakeem Jeffries, he has said, he says all kinds of crazy stuff all the time because he's a crazy man. And Hakeem Jeffries, he's raised questions about this election and other elections and every presidential. The Democrats have objected and challenged every presidential election that they've lost going back to the year 2000 when Al Gore lost to W. Bush, and they brought that all the way to the Supreme Court, and they still object all over the place. Terry McAuliffe, the DNC chair and former Virginia governor, objecting. Hillary Clinton says that the 2016 election was stolen from her, said that the Republicans had a diabolical plan to steal the 2024 election, right? They object to everything all the time. But what gives on this one? I think they turned January 6th, 4 years ago, into such a big deal that they felt that they would look like complete idiots if they objected this time. But the Hakeem Jeffries, he's raised all kinds of crazy things because he's a nut. He's a complete nut.
We will fight hard for the freedom to vote.
Yeah, that's good. You can fight hard for that, and it's already won. So good job, I guess, Hakeem. Amazing. Yeah, they didn't question the legitimacy of the election results this time, and it's true. Hakeem Jeffries said that Donald Trump would never be seen as a legitimate president when he won in 2016. He said all kinds of crazy things, but they're all buttoned up this time. You're right about that. Now, it's not too late for them to change their minds and come back and say that the president's not legitimate and all that, but at which they are in the habit of doing and have a long and storied history of doing. Or, if you work at the New York Times, you never heard about this because they get their news from each other and all that. Isn't it odd that they're not questioning the legitimacy and the results of the election this time and no objections during the certification? It is interesting. Maybe they've got a diabolical plot in the pipeline. That could be the explanation. Dan, I'm going to keep my ear to the ground on that. I'm going to keep my eyes peeled, as painful as that sounds. What does that mean? I think it keep your eyelids open, keep your eyes open, keep your eyes peeled. Yeah, get a little Clockwork Orange thing with your eyelids pinned open. Watch the videos. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it is mysterious, though, Dan. River Queen wants to know, I was wondering how you handled the flood of news while on vacation. I hope you were able to shut it all out while enjoying your best girl. Well, let me tell you something, River Queen, because my best girl and I had a conversation about this on Sunday. Today is Wednesday. On Sunday, and I knew we were going back to work, had 2 weeks off, and we had the move, and, we were sitting there on Sunday in our new apartment with piles and piles of boxes all around us that we're still unpacking. And yeah, I really did switch it off. I'm pretty good at switching it off. I can turn it off and just hang out with my friends and my best girl. And now, when I do, I consume news constantly and have for a long, long time. And I'm pretty good at taking it all in and not. I can digest it without it getting me riled up. I'm pretty good at that. I really am. And I have talks with people at Newsmax, a lot of people in their 20s and their 30s at Newsmax, and I give them talks, kind of, about how to not be stressed out when you live in a newsroom and you're living on a steady diet of all this negativity, which you are when you work in the news business, and the talk radio less so, I think, but I do both now. And it's important to be able to digest this stuff without letting it affect you negatively. And I'm good at looking at it from 30,000 feet and I put everything in historical context. I've talked about this a little bit in the past. I can look at the big news story of the day and not be like September 11th, right? I was at the Pentagon, pulling into the Pentagon parking lot when the plane hit. My office was in the Pentagon. Went to work there the next day, smelling it was still on fire for days and days, and, burned bodies and all that stuff down the hall. And I try to see everything, and I'm very good at seeing everything in historical context and not letting it affect me negatively day in and day out. I'm very good at that. And it's an important thing to be able to do. It's like, and I tell people, it's like being a cop or an ambulance person or a coroner working in a jail or a courthouse. You have to have a sense of humor about this, and you have to be able to see your job as your job and the world as, and I see everything in historical context in like September 11th, right? And it's not about me. It's about history, and I'm watching it. And you may be a little bit of, you may be involved in it in some way, and that's cool. That's not bad. But I've digressed again, haven't I? You handled the flood of news. I checked in a couple of times a day, but I wasn't glued to the news all day, and I was busy with a lot of other stuff. And my best girl and I had a really great attitude during time off and during the move. And they say that moving is one of the most stressful things. It was like death in the family, losing your job, moving, like biggest things, most stressful things. And I got to say, we really weren't stressed out at all during the move. We didn't have any episodes or bad moments or anything. So we were pretty mellow and happy and had a nice time, and we're still unpacking. But it is kind of a big deal moving, even when you're staying in the same zip code. I'll just say zip code, Again, amazing how quickly 3 hours go by or goes by. Either, I think. And we've still got, we got a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Not going to be able to get to everything I wanted to get to once again. I'm going to have to come back tomorrow.
Wish like you had a third term. If I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats, then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. I'd be fine with that.
Yes. That's Hussein talking about the sock puppet named Joe Biden. Remember that. All right, let's go to the, we got a couple of calls in the end. I don't know, today was kind of a weird day for a number of reasons. I think it might have been, Jasmine's making fun of me over there. She's like, it's you. So let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Tony calling from Huntsville, Alabama. Anthony, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Chris. Good to speak to you.
Welcome.
Yeah, so a couple of things. First, I want to get this out of the way. Last week, after the attack in New Orleans, Biden said as he was getting on the plane, it was an action done out of anger and frustration. And I'm like, what? You know, if my kid throws a temper tantrum in Walmart, that's an act of frustration. You know, this is a evil terrorist act. So I think someone told him to say that, of course.
Well, the left, again, radical Islamic jihadi terrorism, they make endless excuses for. They free, just in the last couple of days, radical Islamic jihadi terrorists from Guantanamo Bay. They lift the threat of the death sentence for Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. They reward people on death row, and they give out awards for aborting 1 million babies a year.
Yeah, that's true. So the other thing I wanted to speak to is your last caller, and you were discussing that Obama was actually the puppet master behind Biden, but I always had the opinion that Obama was a paper tiger. I heard him speak off teleprompter before. He didn't seem particularly intelligent. Obamacare, they had that legislation in the box for 20 or 30 years, I guess. Just pulled it out. So I don't know, but you may have met Obama. Am I wrong? Was he really in charge? Was it Valerie Jarrett telling him what to say?
It's funny. Obama is the only president that I haven't met in one fashion or another, going back to Richard Nixon. Now, Nixon wasn't president at the time. I met a number of people, Carter after he was president, Nixon after he was president. But Obama's the only president I haven't met. W. Bush, H.W. Bush, Reagan. I met Clinton. I met them all except Biden. I've met, but all except Obama.
Have you met Valerie Jarrett?
I have not. No, yeah, the real president who's really in charge.
Yeah. Anyways, that's always been my opinion, that he wasn't really. I mean, someone else is telling him what to do, or a group of folks. So, anyways.
Well, the left is a machine. It's a terrible ideology, and it is a machine, and it's a gang. There's a gang of them, and I think you're right about that, Tony. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I wish I had another hour because I'm still pulling stuff together here. Biden administration working to effectively ban cigarettes, looking to ban cigarettes in the 11th hour as a gift to cartels, experts say. Isn't that amazing? That's kind of amazing. And also, with the fires in L.A., L.A. Mayor Karen Bass, who's in Africa, cut the fire department budget by $17.6 million months ago.